I think we got to this discussion from the military-industrial complex and military intervention and Ron Paul before that. If you could like rewind a little bit, uh, is there any amount, according to you and according to various flavors of libertarianism, is there any amount of military intervention that's justified, that's okay?
Um, well, I would say, okay, so at least to me, in terms of like pure libertarian theory, or just in terms of like what I think is right or wrong, like there is such thing as a just war. The most obvious example of that would be like you're invaded by a military and fighting them off. So in that sense, also like even if you wanna kind of isolate from everything else, from all of the awful U.S. policy toward Russia post Soviet Union to all of the NATO expansion and color coded revolutions and all of these things. If you want to, Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine. I do think the Ukrainians have a right to fight and protect their land. Like there's an aggressor there, and you have a right to defend yourself. So certainly in that sense, I think the American Revolution was a just war. I think there can be just wars. In terms of pure libertarian theory, I think I would say that look, you never have a right to kill innocent people. That's never morally okay. Now, there could be a scenario, just like this is true in life in general, right? Like there's lots of things that you don't have the right to do, but you could come up with some scenario where you might be in a position where you have to do it because there were all of these extenuating circumstances, like you could think of something where like you remember the Saw movies
Mhm.
where they used to, these crazy like horror scenarios, but it's like, okay, so there's a person, a evil bad guy has buried a key inside this person, and you have to kill that person in order to get the key, in order to unlock these 20 people to let them out of a cage. Now, look, you still don't have a right to kill people. It's horrible and wrong, and what you did there was still evil. But if you were taken to trial over it, you could probably explain to a judge and a jury, be like, I know, but the situation I was in was either these 20 people were going to die or this one person was going to die. And under that situation, I chose to save the 20. So, like, in other words, by perfect theory, no, you never have the right to kill innocent people. There could be a scenario where you were like, look, we had to take this military action and some innocent people did die. And it's so tragic and awful that we had to do this, but we are certain that many more people would have died had we not done this. Now, in that case, I would look at that as like, um, number one, it's much like killing the one person to save the 20. It's still wrong. It's still an immoral thing that you were forced into doing. It's not justified. I would say that the overwhelming onus should have to be on you to demonstrate that you absolutely needed to do that. And that's how I feel about all these wars. It's not like I think that like let's just say like if you could make World War II like you could reduce it down to the simplest caricature of what World War II is and say there's no Joseph Stalin. We're not even partnering with him. Like there's a good guy in Russia who we were partnering with. And there's and the British Empire had never done anything wrong. They were just nothing but good guys. And of course, FDR was nothing but a good guy. And Hitler was even worse than the real Hitler. You know what I mean? And in order to stop them, we had to go on this bombing campaign and we only got Nazis. We only killed the bad guys and we were able to take out the Third Reich. But one 8-year-old girl died. And you did this thing that stopped the whole world from falling into subjugation. So I think almost everybody would agree, Jesus, man, you have to do that. Okay. This is, you have to do that because the whole world's going to be subjugated. There's nothing but good guys here. The Nazis are so evil. And there's one, I still would say that every single time World War II came up, we should all just be somber and we should all just think about that little 8-year-old girl who died and what a horrible thing it is that we had to do that, And so like when there are these campaigns where like, where tens of millions of people are killed, the fact that anybody's ever like spiking the football or this kind of like rah rah, we were the good ones. And then also when you add in all those other complicated factors like that, this wasn't the scenario at all. But I do so I guess essentially I'd say no, you don't ever have a right to kill innocent people. It's never self-defense to be killing innocent people. I mean, short of like, some type of scenario where like, if you're holding a baby and coming at me shooting and I shoot back at you and okay, I was acting in self-defense and it happened to kill a baby. But I'm talking about like what the scenarios where you're dropping bombs on cities. Um, it's never justified, and the overwhelming onus should be on you to demonstrate that you absolutely have to do it, and that should be the standard. Because there's so many other standards that I see thrown out that I just think make no moral sense at all. People will argue about like in Gaza, they'll argue about the civilian to combatant ratio, which I like. That to me doesn't really, that's not what counts. That's not the measure that's important. And also no one knows what the numbers are. They all just kind of like pretend to. And then the other thing will be that people, as someone just recently argued with me about, they'll say like, well, Hamas has to go. That's the starting point. Hamas has to go. And I'm like, no, I don't think you get to say that, because the truth is that, look, you can make an argument that Hamas has to go, sure. You can make an argument that the Likudniks have to go. You can make an argument that Kim Jong-un has to go, or that Xi has to go, or that Putin has to go, or that Zelensky has to go, or certainly I would make an argument that Joe Biden had to go. But just because a government has to go, that doesn't mean you could just go kill all their people.
Yeah, that should not be the starting point, like the assumption, the axiom of the discussion. Yeah.
The question is there no other option than doing it this way? It's like, okay, like October 7th happened. We can all agree this was like a horrific tragedy, and an indefensible act of terrorism. Like, okay, is it guaranteed that another one of those is going to happen tomorrow? Or was this the biggest security failure in Israeli history? Okay, well, if it's the biggest security failure, let's just say, not even going down the inside job rabbit hole or anything like that, but just saying it's a giant security failure, okay, then put a bunch more men at that fence, first of all. And now you got to talk about how can you achieve your goal while inflicting the minimum amount of devastation on innocent people.